Welcome to the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast. Whether you are a seasoned professional or a first-time fundraiser, we have the advice you need to take your next step toward major gift mastery. I'm your host, Tom Dauber, President of Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Last week's conversation was a blast. I'm so excited to have you with me for this next segment. Let's get back to the show. Tell me a bit about your journey as a person who participates in fundraising, as the CEO, but I know you were kind of the development guy in a previous life. Over the course of your career, where have you felt you've been really successful at fundraising? And what's been a challenge for you as a fundraiser?
Yeah, that's a fun question, because I would say, as I shared earlier, I didn't really go into fundraising for the sake of fundraising. I didn't go into the nonprofit space to become a fundraiser. I wanted to do the mission work that I felt really passionate about. But the organization that I was going with, one of the things that they had as a expectation is everybody who serves with them raises their own salary. And so that was my baptism by fire, and learning how to fundraise. I got a little bit of training and then sent off to raise, whatever I needed to live on for the next couple of years. And so, you learn a lot just in the process, and I would say I learned a lot over those years of the importance of connecting well with the donor, listening and understanding their passions and their perspective, and I learned really the better that I did at connecting at a real heart level with the donor, the easier it was to get them to donate. And so that's one of those kind of fundamental lessons I've learned over the years is it's really about the relationship. And so as I've done development roles over the course of my career and even now, that's fundamentally what I always fall back on is it's really the relationship building piece and finding that way to connect and be be real with the donor. I believe in not sugarcoating. I had a major donor meeting yesterday, and we were talking very frank about the impacts that the current economic situation is having on our organization and some of our plans on how to respond. And it may sound a little scary to be that open and honest about what you're thinking about having to do in order to balance your budget when you're asking this donor to continue to believe in you and invest in you. And yet, they really appreciated that honesty. And it really, I think, goes a long way to say, hey, we're in this together. We're dependent on each other. They want to do good work in the community, and they know it's not their skill set to do that, but they do have the money to be able to leverage for that. And so, that piece is really important for our success, is just building that strong, trusted relationship. The things that I would say I've always struggled with. I'm not great at the ask. I'll be honest. That's the point. When I first started, I could have a great rapport and answer the questions and feel really comfortable. And then as I started getting close to the ask, man, my heart started beating out of my chest, and I get all sweaty, and that's a thing that it's not easy to do, right? It's not easy for whatever reason to ask people for money. And so that's something that I've just learned it's a part of the job. It's a part of the role. If I want to do the work that I'm passionate about, this is a part of what needs to be done. And I've gotten better at it. I don't get nearly as nervous about it as I used to. And I've also gotten better at learning how to really phrase the ask in ways that that feel less intimidating, but still, kind of get to the heart of what what we're going at, and making it more conversational versus just putting it out on the table and being silent. I've done that tactic, and it works, and it's important because sometimes you got to give that donor time to sit and think and process, but also using question techniques to kind of get to where are they thinking, what's their level of comfort, and really having more of a conversational approach has helped as well.
Tell me more about how, like you've mentioned some things that you've done as you've gotten more experienced. Give me some example of those for our listeners that may be really curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things is that when I was trained early on as a fundraiser, it was very much a very systematic process, and you make your pitch, and you really try to connect with them through a couple of questions, but you really it's all getting to this ask, right? And again, that had its time and its purpose. I learned a lot from that, but it leaned towards being very transactional. And so, as I've developed really my own fundraising style, and have learned that my strength in fundraising is my ability to connect with the donor, and engage with them at a real emotional level. I've learned to modify that a little bit. And so, one thing is just asking the question. So, is there something that I've shared today that you really resonate with? A simple question like that I might be picking up that, hey, they might be leaning towards this, but it gives me an opportunity to really hear from them that, oh, when you talked about that really struck me, and then that helps me to fine tune my ask and say, okay, well, let's talk a little bit about that. What does that look like for you to invest? What would you think is a meaningful investment? Here's what that need looks like from our organization standpoint, what the cost is associated with that. Um, and it becomes really this kind of joint conversation that's coming to that point of that conclusion of the ask. In the end, I'm still going to say, would you consider supporting us at this level for this particular program? But we've already had a lot of conversations around it before I ever get to that point.
No, that's great. So when you think about your career in the nonprofit world, and you're going on 25 years or so now,
Yeah.
I'd say, given we're about the same age. Are there any highlights that you think of that you're especially proud of?
Yeah, there's a couple that I think I, I guess I don't think of what I've done in terms of being proud of it or not, but I think there's a couple of really meaningful moments. I When I was working for Habitat for Humanity, I had the opportunity to help develop what we called the Unity Build, and we would oftentimes get a lot of diverse partners together to fund a house, and then those partners would kind of break up their various different times to come and volunteer on the house. But most of the time there was very little interaction between the various partners that we would pull together on that house. But I had this vision of what would it look like for us to take folks from various faith traditions here in Central Ohio and have them work together on the same project and fund the same project. And so, so I approached members of the Jewish community and the Muslim community, the Hindu community, the Sikh community, the Jain community, the Buddhist community, and then the Christian community, and invited them all to come together to help fund a house for a family in our community that needed affordable housing. And not only to fund it together, but to build it together, to actually have days where folks from different backgrounds worked together on the same house. And it was really a beautiful image of what can happen when we kind of let all of the differences that we have, be put to the side, and we focus on the things that we actually all believe in and agree on. And one of the things we all, believe is that fundamentally everybody deserves a good place to live. And so that's something that we can focus our attention on and work together on. And it was really a beautiful project to see come to fruition, to see the relationships and the friendships that were built. I talked to a Christian pastor whose church built the walls of the house. And he became friends with one of the leaders of the Islamic mosque that was very involved in the project, and they would get together for lunch and would talk, and what a beautiful picture of what can happen when we kind of put our focus on the right things.
That's fantastic. I've often thought about, the faith-based sector as a whole. Um, beyond denominationalism or various faith traditions, and we all have our differences, to be sure. And some of them are really deep, fundamental philosophical ways of looking at the universe that are just they're not the same. Yet within that faith based community, there is so much commonality, and I think we shortchange things by not looking to find unity, the unity that we can find in those common values. So that's bravo to you, Phil. That's a really cool idea. I hope they have continued on with that.
Yeah. It's to your point. One of the few things that most faith traditions that I've ever come across have in common is that there is some teaching on caring for the poor.
Yeah, yeah,
And so, if it's something that all of us, no matter what faith background we're coming from, are being taught to care for the poor, well, why can't we do that together?
yeah.
I believe that, the way that we can oftentimes most effectively put our faith tradition into practice, whatever that faith tradition is through service. It's through putting it into action by caring for the poor, by meeting the needs of the community. And so, I believe that that's why the nonprofit sector exists. When you look back in history, it's because faith communities saw a need and they came together and met that need. And it's what we call today the nonprofit sector. But it really has always been rooted in people of faith putting that faith into action to make an impact in the world.
Tom Dauber here for Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Fundraising can be hard work, and it can be hard to mentally get into the place you need to be in order to see new opportunities. Everyone struggles with it. We are like the fish in the fishbowl who just can't see the water they're swimming in. That's when having outside expertise comes in handy. For 25 years, I've been helping nonprofits analyze their challenges, discover new ways forward, and develop clear plans that lead to greater fundraising revenues. Now I am available to help your organization develop the abundant vision it needs to inspire new levels of philanthropy at your nonprofit as well. Check out abundantvision.net to start your journey toward greater fundraising success today. Now, back to the show. How does your faith inform the work that you do, Phil?
Yeah, you could probably hear it. It's a big motivating factor for me, and I don't do it out of obligation. It's really just an appreciation for what my faith teaches me that I've been given, and when I understand how much I've been given, then I have an opportunity to give that back, and really unique and tangible ways. And so, it's really what's driven my most of my career is a desire to really give back to the community, make a very tangible impact in the lives of the folks that come across my path. And I can't change people's lives. I don't have that ability, but I can meet a need, a very tangible need at a moment in time. that potentially could put them on a different trajectory. And that's my responsibility, is just to do what I can do at that moment, and come alongside of them for the time that I can, and journey with them. And that's looked different at different places where I've been able to work. But that's really what gets me up in the morning.
That's great. It's important to have good motivation to keep us going when times get rough, because
Mhm.
in any profession you're going to have that. But I think it's especially true in the nonprofit world that we run into days that are just really hard
Yeah.
sometimes. Well, another area of being a CEO that I think is unique from maybe a fundraiser's experience is that of their relationship with their board. Can you talk a little bit about board management? Where have you done a good job in managing your board? What mistakes have you made along the way that maybe our listeners could learn from?
Yeah, that's one of the really most important relationships for a CEO and for an organization to have right. And I can tell you that the CEO board relationship is probably the one thing that makes or breaks an organization more than anything else.
Hmm.
I've seen with my colleagues uh, who who struggle in that space, who for whatever reason they're just not on the same page as their board, um, and it has devastating impacts on the ability of that organization to fulfill its mission. I'm really lucky. I argue that it's probably the best board in town. I'm sure others would argue the same, but I have a fantastic board, and what's so great about them is that they really are mission centric at their core. And so accomplishing the mission is everything that, every decision, every conversation comes back to: how is this going to help us accomplish the mission? they're they're committed not just as board members, but they're also committed as volunteers. They're engaged at so many different levels. They bring their full self to the organization, and not just their name and their position or their title or their company that they represent. They kind of bring all of that to the table, and most importantly, they know what their role is, which is governance and holding me accountable to accomplishing the mission. But they don't get involved in the organization, the day-to-day operations. They trust me to be able to do that, and that's really critical. That I'm freed up to make the decisions that I need to make in the moments, without really fearing that they're looking over my shoulder, going to question my decisions. And so, it's an important relationship. Like any relationships, it's a little bit like major donor relationships, where you gotta develop those. You gotta spend time on those board relationships. And so, I try to spend a little bit of individual time with each of my board members each year, just to get to know them personally, and talk about their experience as a board member, and come alongside of them, as well as all of the different committee times and board meetings. Just making sure that we aren't just being transactional, but we're spending some time relationally as well in those moments. It's just critical to the success of the relationship. Um, One of the things I think I've learned is when you're in this unique position where they're your boss, but at the same time, many of them are looking to you to help lead and guide them on what their responsibility is as a board. It's a little bit of a unique situation, and so what I've found is that I've had to learn along the way is how I can come alongside of them and help them to understand and be most effective in their role as a board member, even though technically they're my boss. That feels a little odd sometimes, but really, this is my day in and day out. I'm eating, drinking, breathing nonprofit work. Most of my board members, they're in corporate settings or maybe larger nonprofit or governmental settings, so they don't understand our world. And so it's my responsibility to help educate them on our reality and also help them know what they need to do to be the most effective board member they can be.
Hmm. Well, tell us a little bit, and you've told us kind of what your organization does in the community, but tell us more about your current vision, things you're excited about, campaigns you've been working on. What are you most excited about presently at the Furniture Bank?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the mission is about, providing furniture and home goods. And it all starts with us collecting donated goods, donated furniture, donated home goods that folks in our community have, gotten to the point where they no longer need it, and yet it still has usable life, and that's really the driver of everything that we do. And so we spend a lot of time and money and investment going out and collecting all of that, because without it, I wouldn't be able to serve any of the 3,600 families that we serve each and every year. And so we about 3 years ago, right as I was coming on board, we launched a major capital campaign that said, what would it look like for us to be able to not just serve 3,600 families every year, but what would it look like for us to be able to serve 6,000 families in a year? And a big part of that was, we have to do a better job of collecting and maintaining an inventory of the furniture and home goods that we need to make sure that families, when they come in, whatever they're looking for, we have it in stock. And so we've invested. We originally were going to raise about $6.4 million. We've raised almost $8 million to build a new warehouse right on our site on the west side of Columbus and the near west side of Columbus, and then renovate our offices that in the headquarters that we've been in for the last 16 or so years, to really expand our ability to serve clients, to make sure that they have a good selection of furniture to choose from, so that they're not just being forced to take whatever we have, at that moment. We really want to give them a dignified shopping experience so that they can feel supported and cared for, but also maintain their dignity and the respect of the community. And so we're very excited about that. We've been actively under construction of a 50,000 square foot warehouse that we're very excited about. But another part of that is that we actually produce furniture as well with volunteers. So we produce over 3,500 pieces of furniture every year in house, almost 100% with volunteers. And so our new warehouse is going to have an expanded wood shop that's going to really allow us to produce even more furniture, because we'll be able to accommodate larger volunteer groups. And that's going to be very transformative, because there's certain things like dressers and kitchen tables that people hold on to for a lot longer. Many of us probably have a dresser in our house that's 75 years old or older, right? And so you can hold on to those things a lot longer than maybe a couch, which may reach your end of life, 10, 15, 20 years. And so we produce dressers and kitchen tables and a few other things, just to make sure that every family has what they need at the moment that they need it. And then the last thing we're really excited about is that we've operated a number of social enterprises as a way to be a sustainable organization. And when you think about all of the furniture that we're collecting, we are keeping it out of the landfill. And if you talk to anybody who's in that waste management world, our landfills in America are filling up at a rate that is unsustainable. And so we really are on the front lines of helping, not intentionally, it's just part of the consequence of the mission, but to help divert literally tons of what would end up as waste from the landfills and keeping it in productive use. And so one of the ways we do that is we have a couple of thrift stores that we sell some of the usable goods that aren't necessarily appropriate for our families, and sell it back to the community, keep it out of the landfill a little bit longer, and use those funds to support our mission. And we're excited that we're launching our third thrift store in the coming couple of months. And so that's a huge step for us. It's a big step in a time when the economy is a little bit challenging, especially retail. But we believe it's the right thing to do to prepare us for when the economy does turn around. We're going to be raring to go, ready to serve another community with the furniture that they need for their community.
Well, that's fantastic, and it's great to hear that you overshot your fundraising goal. I know that that wasn't always a given.
No, and obviously it was it's great, but a lot of it was because of increased costs.
Yeah.
Over the course of the last couple of years, with inflation, a lot of things have gotten more expensive, and so we had to keep raising because we know that the costs kept rising for what we needed to accomplish. But yeah, it always feels good when you can exceed that goal.
So Phil, if folks want to learn more about your organization, maybe even send you a $500 check that would get them a phone call, how would they do that? Where would they find you guys?
Yeah, so our website is furniturebankcoh.org, furniturebankcoh.org. And that's really our front door for all things, whether you want to make a donation financially, make a donation of furniture, learn about the families and the stories of folks that we get to serve each and every day. That's the best place to start. And of course, we have a fairly active social media presence. And I would encourage those who are interested to follow us on Facebook, as well as follow our thrift stores. If you're a thrifter and you like the hunt of a good bargain and a unique piece of furniture, there's always really fun, creative, interesting things that come our way. And we oftentimes will post about those on our Facebook pages for each of our stores. Our stores are called Furniture with a Heart. So you can just put that in the search bar and you can find our Lancaster location and our main location on Morris Road in Columbus. And those are just great ways to continue to learn about us and support the work that we do.
Fantastic. Well, Phil, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you for sharing with us some of the wisdom that you've gained over the past few decades. Just hope that you continue to have success in serving our community.
Hey, thank you, Tom. We really appreciate it.
Now, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider. I'm your host, Tom Dauber. Thank you for joining me as we journey together towards major gift mastery on the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast.